Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming here today, and thank you also to the organizers for having me. Certainly, it's better than, I'm sure, for all of you than being in school this morning. And I expect this to be an eye-opening debate, which I'm sure you're going to find very interesting. The theme of the discussion, and indeed of the different events organized around BRIGHTMED this year, is borders. As many of you know, here in Gibraltar, we are perhaps expert on the issue of borders, and we know plenty about one particular kind of border. We know about physical, political borders. We know about and we have experienced a hard border, a soft border, with different degrees and different variations in between. Indeed, some of us have also experienced, those of us who are old enough to remember, a closed border. We should never forget that. It is incredibly important, especially in the world we live in today, that we all remember the past. We must also make time for discussions and debate, to listen to each other, to understand each other, to learn from each other. Each and every person here will have their own perspective and their own unique way of understanding the world around us. Each of us will always have something new to learn. You are extremely lucky to have such a diverse and interesting group of speakers here this morning. They will tell you about their own experiences. They will help you to see things in a different way. I don't think that borders naturally exist between people or between individuals, but they are something that we experience, that we live with, and that we can overcome every day. A border can be physical and political. A physical border, like the land frontier between Gibraltar and Spain. However, borders can also be invisible. So, for example, a misunderstanding can create an invisible border between two people. This is something you cannot see or touch, but it is there. You can feel it. And there are aspects like the environment, for example, that actually have no borders. Environmental problems affect everybody. It does not matter where you live. That is why the protection of our environment, of our air quality, and of our oceans is a responsibility that every individual must take. All of us. Smoke pollution, marine pollution, noise pollution, chemical pollution does not need a passport or an identity card in order to travel. Pollution recognizes no frontiers. I referred to earlier to the closure of the land border between Gibraltar and Spain in June 1969. Next year will mark the 50th anniversary of the day when the Spanish gates slammed shut. That closure created a more unnatural border between people. Family and friends were suddenly separated. People who would otherwise would cross over between two countries to visit each other, to spend time together, and to care for each other, suddenly found that they could do so no longer. A political border, therefore, created a very human border as well. I remember as a child being driven around the frontier area when it was closed. Families on this side shouted news to relatives on the other side. Babies and small children were held up in the air for relatives on the other side to see. There was no internet then. There were no mobile phones, no Facebook, no Twitter, no Messenger. There were no telephone links either. Those were cut off. This traumatic experience was certainly an act of inhumanity. Part of my job is to make sure that something like that does not happen again. That means working with people. It means discussing our views. It means coming together to build on the interests that we have in common. I'm sure, for example, that you've all heard about Brexit. Leaving the European Union will be a challenge to all of us in this room. It will create another kind of border, a legal border with rules, regulations, and obstacles. How will we interact, work, and do business with countries all over the world in the years to come? And how will you, as school students now and potential university students in the future, be affected by those new barriers? The reality is that it is only through individuals talking to each other, sitting down diplomatically and understanding each other that we can work together to overcome those new borders. There are parts of the world where people think culture, religion, or race is a barrier or a border. Listen to the news. There are reports to this effect every single day. The truth is that culture, religion, or race should not be seen as a source of friction. Culture is a bridge. Religion is a bridge. Race is a bridge. In Gibraltar, we are enriched by a varied religious, cultural, and racial background in a very small country. That melting pot has made us who we are today. A distinct people. A people with origins that can be traced back through the centuries for over 300 years. Indeed, in 1777, a register of population showed that our ancestors came from Genoa and Savoy in Italy, from England, from Ireland, from Spain, from Minorca, Sephardic Jews from Morocco, and later too they came from Malta, from India, Muslims from Morocco when the border was shut, and people from elsewhere. All living together, regardless of religion, nationality, or race. This makes Gibraltar almost unique, a shining example to the world. Within the confines of the frontiers that define the external borders of the rock, there are no internal borders between us in this regard. And let me say that there are things that you can do yourselves that will help you to cross the many different types of borders that exist every day. Take the internet, for example. The internet knows no frontiers. The speakers that you're about to listen to use it all day, every day, to communicate and to overcome borders. I'm sure many of you do so too. It is used to spread news, opinions, art, information, films, and music all over the planet. Over the last 20 years or so, the internet has been truly revolutionary, and it has revolutionized how people communicate and experience the world around us. And yet there are some countries that limit access to the internet and to information, and in so doing impose more artificial, invisible borders on their own people. To me, that is not right. The internet, with its music, books, films, newspapers, and documentaries, gives us free information. We can use this to transcend some of the borders that politics, history, and geography impose upon us. I strongly encourage you to use those technologies to learn more, to learn about other people and their cultures, to be curious about the values, to discover how other societies operate and what it might be like to live there. Ask questions, be open-minded, and try to see things from somebody else's perspective. Here in Gibraltar, we value this kind of openness. Our society is a place where people from a mixture of different religions, cultures, and traditions can all proudly call themselves Gibraltarian. But we also transcend physical borders every day. through interacting with people who come here to work and visit, and through traveling ourselves to enjoy free time, eat different food, and visit family and friends. I want to conclude by paying tribute to Jan Delgado and the BRIGHTMED team who have been responsible for today and for the events of this week. I invite you to use what you learned today, to think about those experiences, about how they affect your life, and about who you are as a person. The lesson is that we have more in common than what divides us. If we can all understand this, then we can work together to remove some of the borders that we face in everyday life. Thank you for listening.